Well, here we've got the remnant is going to be saved today. Last week, you might remember we took a look at Joseph's family, and they were living the type of what it's going to be in the tribulation period forward from where we are here today. That tribulation period was the tribulation that they were going through, the brothers, is a type of what the nation of Israel is going to go through in the tribulation period of the future. If we look at this correctly, the whole story, whole narrative of Joseph is a type of God bringing his people that have strayed away from him back to himself. And today we'll continue on in that respect, because as we have seen, Joseph was given prophecies by God. His brothers hated him because of that. They wanted to kill him. They threw him in a pit with no water. And they decided not to kill him. But they did sell him to some Ishmaelites that were coming by. And Joseph went to Egypt. And Joseph did well in Potiphar's house, but Joseph was falsely accused there and thrown in jail. While he was in jail, the Pharaoh of Egypt, his butler and his cupbearer were both thrown in jail as well. And Joseph interpreted dreams that they had, saying one was going to be hanged, but the cupbearer was going to be restored his job. And Joseph says, make sure and tell the Pharaoh about me, because I'm here as an innocent man. Well, that cupbearer, when he did get released and he was restored back his job with the Pharaoh, forgot all about Joseph until the Pharaoh had a dream. Now all of this God is orchestrating, because we saw earlier the sinful nature of the sons of Jacob. They were destroying themselves. They were chasing after other gods. They were chasing after pleasure. They were not following God in any respect. But God's heart is to bring his people back. Now, this is an absolute miracle, because the Lord created all of us with a free will. We could follow God or we could walk away from him. And that is the reason for the tribulation period coming up. The last 7 years of this age that we are in is to make it difficult to stay alive during the tribulation. But God is there, and he's going to miraculously save the people that decide to walk with him. And this has been pictured several times in the Bible. Two of them notably. We have the Israelite Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the book of Daniel, where the whole world was supposed to worship this idol. Those three did not. They were warned if they didn't bow down and worship this statue, that they would be thrown in the fiery furnace. And of course, they went in the fiery furnace, but God miraculously saved them, and they came out of that fiery furnace. Just the same way, God is going to preserve, miraculously save a remnant of Israel in the tribulation period. But what we're reading in the book of Genesis is a type of what we read in the book of Revelation, which is the antitype. And we started that yesterday. Last week. We might remember that it was the first part of the tribulation, the first 3.5 years, where the Antichrist is going to make a peace pact with Israel, but there is this king of the north that's going to break that peace pact by attacking Jerusalem, breaking the peace pact. The Antichrist is down in Egypt at that point, and he's going to leave Egypt, go up to Jerusalem, and he's going to annihilate the king of the north and his army. But the Antichrist at that point, at the 3.5-year division in the 7 years, right in the midpoint, is going to go into the temple, the tribulation temple that is going to be built, and he's going to pronounce himself as God and have everyone bow down and worship him. But of course, the remnant that God's going to save, that was pictured with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, they're not going to bow down. They're not going to take the mark of the beast. And God's going to miraculously save them. Well, we have a picture of that early on in Israel's history. In fact, Israel's 12 sons, 11 of them, 10 of them wanted to kill their brother. God caused a famine, a 7-year famine, and that's what the Pharaoh had dreamed about, that there was going to be a famine. And so the brothers had to go to Egypt to buy food. In the meantime, God had already been working and had exalted their brother Joseph, whom everyone thought was dead, as second in command of Egypt, and going to be the salvation of his brethren. It is a type of what's going to happen in the tribulation period. We're going to see today where God miraculously saves the 11 brethren that were doomed to at least life in prison over there in Egypt. They're going to be miraculously saved. And then we're going to take a look at how God is going to save the remnant of Israel and a great number that we can't, a great amount of Gentiles that we can't even number in the tribulation period as well. That's the heart of God. This is a very important narrative. So let me go to Genesis 37 for just a little bit here, read a few verses, and we'll see here the beginning. We'll just rehearse this. A couple of weeks ago, we read this before, but this is the beginning. Chapter 37, the book of Genesis. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. So Joseph was going out to see how his brothers were. Jacob had sent him out there. Brothers were not doing well. And so Joseph came back and gave the evil report. Verse 3, now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was a son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. So first of all, there was jealousy. Verse 5, and Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field. And lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaf. The brothers could understand this prophecy. We can see that in their reaction, that this dream meant that the brothers were going to bow down and pay obeisance to Joseph. They scorned that. They hated him more, even more than the jealousy that they had before. Verse 8, and his brethren said unto him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? See, they did understand it. And shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams, his prophecy, and his words. Can we picture Jesus, who came to his own, and his own rejected him? And what did they hate him about? His teaching and the very words that he was speaking. Those words were sent to him from the Father, and he was to give them out, and those words would be the judge in the last days. Verse 9, and he dreamed yet another dream and told it to his brethren and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance unto me. We're going to go today to Revelation chapter 12, and we're going to see this play out. The sun, moon, and the 11 stars play out in the book of Revelation at the time that there is a remnant in the tribulation period, and God's going to save them. So that, excuse me, it tells us that this right here is a type of what's going to happen in the tribulation period. Verse 10, and he told it to his father and his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying, and his brethren went to feed their flock in Shechem. They went back to Shechem, where they were, and we know the story there. Even in chapter 38, the book of Genesis, we saw the evil life that Judah, the one that whose line Jesus is going to come, we're going to see Judah again today in a very different light. He's going to be a very different man when we see him today. That's the heart of the Lord. He wants to bring his people back. He doesn't force anybody back. As a matter of fact, he wouldn't be righteous if he did that. He's righteous because he came down and shed his blood for the people that want to be with him, that want to love him, that do love him. And those are the ones that the Lord's going to save. It's not everybody. There is a remnant, though. The Lord has a remnant in every generation. Let's take a look at what it says in Isaiah in about the middle of the book. Just one verse here. You might remember this first chapter of Isaiah. Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us, this is talking about the nation of Israel, a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like Gomorrah. That is the gist of this message today. That if the Lord had not left of Israel a small remnant, then they would have been destroyed. They haven't been destroyed because the Lord said that he was going to save Israel way back in the book of Genesis. You notice the next verse, hear ye the word of the Lord, you rulers of Sodom. He says the word of God is the answer to the problems. Let's go right into this narrative in Genesis 44. And Joseph's brothers are in deep trouble now, more trouble than they have been, because they come to Egypt again, and you might remember they took Benjamin with them. Jacob didn't want them to take Benjamin because Joseph had already was gone. He thought the wild animals had gotten him when he left, so Jacob was going to protect Benjamin. But the famine was so bad they had to go, and we might remember the first time that they went there, and the second, Joseph, although he knew who they were, didn't say so, and he also accused them of being spies. And as they were leaving the second time with grain sacks full, they went to an inn, and there was found the ruler, Joseph's silver cup, in the sack of Benjamin. So now Benjamin is a thief, it looks like, and all of the brethren looks like it's a conspiracy, and it looks like they have been telling a lie to Joseph all along. They could spend the rest of their life in jail over there in Egypt, or capital punishment. They were in deep trouble. Let's see what happens here. Chapter 44 in the book of Genesis, verse 13, and they rent their clothes and laid at every man's ass and returned to the city. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. Now that's what Joseph's dream was. You might remember with his brother, and his brethren hated him for it. But now they're bowing down to Joseph. They don't know it's Joseph yet, but that's exactly what they're doing. And Joseph said unto them, what deed is this that you have done? Would you not that such a man as I could certainly divine? He's saying, who do you think I am? Do you think I'm stupid? Verse 16, and Judah said, what shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found. You see, this is a confession here. It says, God hath found out the iniquity of her servants. They thought they had covered up their sin of selling their brother to Egypt. But the Lord knew all along, and ridiculous how sometimes we can think that we can hide something from the Lord? These brothers did, but now they know that their iniquity is coming back to them. Verse 17, and he said, God forbid that I should do so, but the man in whose hand the cup is found, he shall be my servant. Now, here's Joseph speaking, and he says, Benjamin now is going to be my slave, since he tried to steal my silver cup. He's going to be my servant. As for you, he's talking to the rest of the brethren, he says, get ye up in peace unto your father. Now, that is pretty bad. How can they go back to Jacob without Benjamin? And you might remember that Judah had spoken up to Jacob back in Canaan and said that blame me if something happens to Benjamin. Now look what Judah's going to say this time. Then Judah came near to him and said, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not thine anger burn against thy servant. For thou art even as Pharaoh. My Lord asked his servants, saying, have ye a father or a brother? And we said unto my Lord, we have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead, and alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. It was saying that his mother had two sons. One was Joseph, and he's no more. And so Benjamin is the last one of Rachel. Verse 19, my Lord asked his servants, saying, have ye a father or a brother? And we said unto my Lord, we have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother. And his father loveth him. And thou sayest unto thy servants, bring him down unto me, that I may set my eyes upon him. And we said unto my Lord, the lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. We told you we had a little brother, it says, and you said that we were spies, but if we could go bring our little brother back here, then we would be proved that we were not lying. We did that. But now, how can we go back and face our father if we don't bring Benjamin back with us? Verse 23, and thou saidst unto thy servants, except your youngest brother come down with you, you shall see my face no more. And it came to pass, when we came up to thy servant my father, we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, go again and buy us a little food. And we said, we cannot go down if our youngest brother be with us. Then will we go down, and we may not see the man's face, except for the youngest brother be with us? And thy servant my father said unto us, ye know that my wife bare two sons, and the one went out from me, and I said, surely he is torn in pieces, and I saw him not since. And if ye take this also from me, and mischief befall him, ye shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. Now therefore, when I come to thy servant my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad's life, it shall come to pass, when he seeth that the lad is not with us, that he will die. And thy servant shall bring down the gray hairs of thy servant our father with sorrow to the grave. Judah is reiterating the whole thing to Joseph, not knowing that Joseph is the older brother who they had, sold into slavery. But he's saying, we can't go. How can we go back to our father and not bring Benjamin? That will kill our father. Verse 32, for thy servant became surety for the lad. You see, Judah is coming back to him and says, I became the surety of my little brother. In other words, he would be held accountable, saying, if I bring him not unto thee, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad a bondman to my Lord, and let the lad go up with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me, lest peradventure I see the evil that shall come upon my father? Can we see what Judah just did? He says, take me, let me be your servant, and let Benjamin go back to his father. He's taking the place, he's offering to take the place of the innocent one. You know, that's what Adam should have done. He should have offered to take the place of Eve when Eve sinned. He didn't, he sinned right along with her. The reason is that is living the type of Christ. Christ is the substitute. He's the innocent substitute because all of his people deserve death. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. All have the death penalty on us. But Jesus is the one that the innocent substitute that took our place in death. Here, Judah is actually repenting. It didn't look that way in chapter 38 when the narrative of Joseph was just broken up, you might remember. And we had a whole chapter of the evil life that Judah was living. But you see this tribulation and the fact that his little brother was going to be the servant over there in Israel, in Egypt, for the rest of his life, was enough to have Judah realize that his sin is out there in the open. And so he wants to pay the price of his sin. That's a miracle that God performed. That's the reason that the narrative was broken there in chapter 38. Remember, chapter 37 was about Joseph, and then 38, the narrative was broken, and we took a look at the evil life of Judah for seemingly no reason. And then in chapter 39, it went right back onto the narrative of Joseph. But actually, what this is the Lord's telling us it's not about Joseph, and it's not about Judah, not about Jacob for that matter. This is about Jesus Christ. And we can see that parallel when we take a look at John chapter 1, verses 10 and 11. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came to his own, and his own received him not. But here is the Lord's heart. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor the will of the flesh, nor the will of man, but of God. That's the Lord's heart. He wants to take the person that has, turned their back on God, and he wants to bring them back to himself. This is a dramatic narrative that we just read. Let's see how it plays out, continues over here in chapter 45 of the book of Genesis. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, "Cause every man to go out from me." Now that's talking about all the Egyptians that are there. And there stood no man with him while Joseph made himself known to his brethren. This right here is a type of the second coming of Jesus Christ, when every eye will see him. Verse 2, and he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. Can you imagine what they thought now? Here's Joseph, who we thought was dead. He's the one that's been talking to us through an interpreter. Verse 5, now therefore, be not grieved nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. You see, Joseph's heart knew that God was working. That's why Joseph never did despair with everything that he went through, being thrown in jail after being falsely accused. But the Lord exalted him and made him ruler over Egypt. Why? So he could preserve the remnant of Israel. Verse 6, for these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there were 5 years in which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. You see, this shows us that Joseph believed the word of God. That was the dream that Joseph had interpreted, that the Pharaoh had a dream, that there was going to be 7 years of famine. That's a type of the 7-year tribulation period. After a time of plenty, there's going to be 7 years, and Egypt needed to store up all the grain. That's why Egypt had all the food. The Lord was forcing Jacob's family to come to Egypt so that they could come to God. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. Joseph knows that it was God that sent me here to Egypt, he's saying. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and ruler throughout the land of Egypt. Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, and tarry not. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen. The land of Goshen is right there at the delta of the great Nile River, the most luscious grass in Africa. And the Egyptians looked down on sheep herders. So they didn't lived there in the Delta. They lived further down on the Nile. So God had prepared the place, can we see, for the nation of Israel here, so that they would be safe during the famine. The Lord's going to do that to the remnant, going to save them miraculously out of the tribulation period in the future. Verse 11, and there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. And behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of your brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that speaketh unto you, and you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and all that ye have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. Joseph wants to see his father. Verse 14, and he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. And moreover, he kissed all his brethren and wept upon them. And after that, his brethren talked with him. And the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come. And it pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. The Lord even prepared the Pharaoh's heart in this instance. Verse 17, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, say unto thy brethren, this do ye. Hide your beasts and go, get you into the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and ye shall eat the fat of the land. Now thou art commanded this do ye, take your wagons out of the land of Egypt, for your little ones and for your wives, bring your father and come. Also regard not your stuff, for the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. And the children of Israel did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. To all of them he gave each man changes of raiment, but Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of raiment. And to his father he sent after this manner, 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed, and he said unto them, see that ye fall not by the way. And they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father. So they are back now in Canaan land. They're walking up to Jacob, their father, and they're going to say, Joseph is yet alive. I told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. Jacob didn't even believe them at first. And they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And here's what Jacob's going to say. And Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die. Israel took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here am I. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. So Jacob's on his way to Egypt. He's going to see Joseph. And look what happens here. Jacob rose up from Beersheba And the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, and their little ones and their wives, in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry them. And they took their cattle and their goods, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came unto Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters, his sons' daughters, and all the seed brought he with them into Egypt. Now, the antitype of this narrative that we've just read about Joseph being the savior of his brethren that had grossly mistreated him, is going to play out here in the book of Revelation in chapter 12. We have read this before, but we have some players here in Revelation 12. We've got a woman that's clothed with the sun, a sun-clothed woman, and we have a big red dragon and a man-child. And we also have a remnant, a seed from the woman. Those are the players. Let's see how this plays out. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head was a crown of 12 stars. We remember Joseph's dream? There was a sun and a moon and 12 stars. Verse 2, and she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. So here the woman is pregnant. She's travailing, going to give birth. In verse 3, there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. Now we can read the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation, and we'll see who this beast is. Verse 4, and his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations. You notice this? This wasn't just any man-child. This is the one that's going to rule all nations. That's Jesus Christ. He's going to rule with a rod of iron, as it says in Psalm 2 and other places. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. We can see who the man-child is here. None other than Jesus Christ. It's pointing back, from Revelation 12, to Christ dying on the cross and being resurrected and caught up to God and sitting on the right hand of the throne of God right now, waiting for the Father to tell him to come back down to earth. Verse 6, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. The Lord's going to miraculously preserve the remnant of the woman. Can we see that the sun-clothed woman is the nation of Israel? Can we see that big red dragon is Satan? And the last 3.5 years of the tribulation period, the Lord is going to miraculously save them. We're going to see in a metaphor how he's going to do that. Verse 7, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not. Satan's not going to prevail in that battle. And not only that, but there's no place found for him in heaven anymore. Neither was there a place found anymore in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. This is the point here where Satan is cast out of heaven. He's down here on earth. This is when Satan knows that his time is short, that he's got to do something right now. We saw the wrath of God being poured out last week, and now the wrath of Satan is going to play out. We've got a terrible 3.5 years here. But look at the message, verse 10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Satan has been accusing the nation of Israel to God now for several thousand years. But he's going to be cast down from heaven, and it's going to play out in the last half of the tribulation period, a time that's going to be worse than ever was or ever will be in the future. Verse 11, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives to the death. This is how the remnant is saved in any dispensation. The blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, and they desire to be with Christ more than anything else. This is the way that we overcome the world. And the remnant is going to realize that here in Revelation 12, verse 11, are going to realize what is most important. If we'll stop and think about it, the trials that we go through, why do we go through them? You see, the Lord is keeping us on track. We have a free will. We can fail those trials, if that's what we want to do. But the Lord set it up, as it says in the first chapter of James, that if it gets tough there in the tribulation, that we can ask of him, and he will give us the wisdom to get through that liberally. And he speaks to us in his word, tells us how to get through the tribulation that we go through. This tribulation, however, that we're talking about, this 7 years, is going to be horrible. But the ones that do not take the mark of the beast, the Lord is going to preserve. Verse 12, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman, which brought forth the man-child. And the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time. Now that's 3.5 years again. The time is 1 year, times is 2 years, and half a time is 3.5 years from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. Satan is going to try something that God did in Genesis chapter 6 and 7. He's going to try and flood the earth and destroy the woman, which of course is Israel. But he's not going to be able to. Look at verse 16. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Israel is not going to be annihilated. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So now the dragon focuses on the seed. He wants to get to God, but he can't. He's trapped on earth. So he's going to go after God's people, the ones that keep his commandments and have his testimony. Now, if we want to know the heart of God, we see it many times in the book of Psalms and in the book of Isaiah. Two of the longest books in the Bible. They contain the heart of God. And in Isaiah 66, the Lord is talking about this very same time that we were talking about, that Joseph and his brethren were a type of the tribulation period of Christ and his brethren that had so severely mistreated him. And here's the message. 700 years before Christ came to the earth, 700 years before he was on the cross, 2,700 years from today. Let's listen to the word of the Lord. Hear the word of the Lord, ye that tremble at his word, you brethren that hated you, that cast you out for my name's sake, said, let the Lord be glorified, but he shall appear to your joy, and they shall be ashamed. A voice of noise from the city, and a voice from the temple, a voice of the Lord that rendereth recompense to his enemies. Now, this is the last book, the last chapter in the book of Isaiah. After 65 chapters that goes through the life of Christ, and has many types as well as prophecies of the Messiah. There's more of those in the book of Isaiah than anywhere else. He's going to continue here. The last chapter is just filled with the heart of God. Verse 7, before she travailed, she brought forth, before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. Can we see what Isaiah is seeing here? What the Lord is giving, the vision that Isaiah is receiving from the Lord is about this man-child, the same man-child that we just read about in Revelation chapter 12. It's Jesus Christ. But it's talking about a woman travailing and bringing forth. But it's really not talking about a woman. It's talking about the the metaphoric woman in Revelation chapter 12 is talking about Israel bringing forth. But the Lord here in this metaphor is saying before she had the birth pains, she brought forth a child. Before her pain came, he says, as the Hebrew language does, it reiterates something. This is actually poetry, and it's it is similar poetry. We've got the first stanza and the second stanza meaning the same thing. They're different words, but it makes it very, very clear what he's saying. Before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. The Lord says, who's heard of such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? You see how this metaphor progresses? He's talking about the earth bringing forth in one day. Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. Now you see here in 2 verses, we've got a very strong metaphor and we have the interpretation of it. Zion is going to bring forth. It's the nation of Israel that's going to be born. You know, if we take a look at it in the book of Exodus and Genesis, we see that God started with Abraham and made a people. And we talk about those people became a great nation. And the kings that were there, like David and Solomon, a great nation. Actually, the way the Lord takes a look at it, that people don't become a great nation until what we're reading about right here. When Zion travails. Verse 9, shall I bring to birth and not cause to bring forth? The Lord is saying, do you think that I would start to do something and not finish it? Of course not. The Lord is going to cause to bring forth. Saith the Lord, shall I cause to bring forth and shut the womb? Saith thy God. Rejoice ye with Jerusalem, and be glad with her, all ye that love her. Rejoice for joy with her, all that mourn for her, that ye may suck and be satisfied with the breasts of her consolations, that ye may milk out and be delighted with the abundance of her glory. For thus saith the Lord, behold, I will extend peace to her like a river, and the glory of the Gentiles like a flowing stream. Then shall ye suck, ye shall be borne upon her sides, and be dandled upon her knees. This is a very strong metaphor of a woman and child, but it's not talking about a woman and child, it's talking about God and his remnant. And the Lord is not going to quit halfway through. That Israel is going to be, a remnant is going to be saved. And you notice what it says here in the last part about the Gentiles? We read, you might remember, in the 49th chapter of Isaiah, where the poetry begins, and we don't know who the person is at first. But as we read down, it only takes a few verses and we start to see that it's Jesus Christ that it's talking about. And then Jesus Christ is talking about what the Father told him And what the Father told him was, it's a light thing that I'm going to have you bring Israel back, but I'm going to also make you a light to the Gentiles. It's always been in God's heart, not just Israel. Israel, there's going to be a remnant that's going to return to the land, and there's going to be a kingdom, because God said it when he called Abraham and built a people from him. But God is still working, and he's going to build a nation out of those people, and there's nobody that's going to stop him. Verse 13, and one whom his mother comforteth, so will I comfort you. Ye shall be comforted in Jerusalem. And when ye see this, your heart shall rejoice, and your bones shall flourish like an herb. And the hand of the Lord shall be known toward his servants, and his indignation toward his enemies. When Christ comes down the second time with his red raiment, and his army following behind him with white raiment, it's going to be a very different looking Jesus than the first time that he came. He's coming with judgment, and that judgment is against the enemies of Israel. Verse 15, for behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh. This is what he's going to do. And the slain of the Lord will be many. It's not going to be all, though, because when the Lord pleads, there's going to be some that answer the call. That's the remnant. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come that I will gather all nations. You notice who's going to gather all nations? It's the Lord that's going to gather all nations. You know, it's not the kings coming from the east or the kings coming from the west. It's not even, as we saw last week, the king of the north that's coming down to attack Jerusalem. Remember, there was a fish hook put in his jaw, and the Lord was pulling him down to Jerusalem. The Lord is also for the battle of Armageddon, the last battle in the war of Armageddon that began in the midpoint of the tribulation period. The Lord is going to gather all nations, and he's going to come down at that point. That's when every eye is going to see him. He's going to have that sword in his mouth, the sword of the Spirit, the word of God. And that is what is going to slay the enemies of Israel. Verse 19, and I will set a sign among them, and I will send these that escape of them into the nations, to Tarshish, Pul, Lud, and draw the bow, to Tubal and Javan, to the isles afar off, that have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. This is talking about the kingdom. We're going to have work to do in the kingdom, because everybody is going to see the Lord's glory, and they're going to come to the Lord in a kingdom. There's going to be a great revival that happens at that time. Verse 20 of Isaiah 66, and they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord out of all nations, upon horses and chariots and litters, and upon mules and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain, Jerusalem, saith the Lord, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel unto the house of the Lord. There are still Jews in every nation around the world. One day the Lord's going to bring them back. And in one day, as it says in the book of Zechariah, and I will also take of them for priests and for Levites, saith the Lord. There's going to be priests and Levites in the kingdom. For as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, this is talking about the feasts now, that the Lord, we'll see when we get to the book of Exodus, but the Lord instituted those feasts to spread his word. Even in the celebrations of Israel, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. We'll read more about this next time, but there's going to be a great feast of tabernacles at this point, and it's going to encompass the entire world. It's not going to be only Jews. It's going to be of every nation. People are going to come to the Lord and go to this massive Feast of Tabernacles. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that they've transgressed against me, and for their worm shall not die, and neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. This is pictured in the book of Revelation and in the book of Ezekiel as the supper of the great God, when the birds of prey are called to dine on the flesh of kings and so forth. This is Isaiah is seeing this 2,700 years ago. It hasn't occurred yet, but it's going to. So we just saw here in Isaiah 66 what the Lord is going to do. But how is he going to pull it off? Or to put it in Bible words, how does the Lord cause to bring forth? You might remember he said that in the 5th verse of Isaiah 66. Will I, begin this and not cause to bring forth? Of course he's going to bring forth. Well, how is he going to do it? The Bible tells us in the book of Zechariah. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 12. And you might remember we read this, I believe, last time, of how this battle of Armageddon is going to begin. Actually, it's the war of Armageddon from the midpoint of the tribulation period. How does it begin? Well, just like the Lord is the one that's going to cause everybody to assemble in one place to fight against the Lord, it is the Lord that also begins the battle. Look at this. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Going back to creation. Behold, I make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about, when they shall be at siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. The Lord is going to make Jerusalem, that city, a cup of trembling unto all people round about. Have you noticed how Jerusalem is always in the news? I wondered about that even when I was a kid. I could see that, this little nation of Israel uh, and Jerusalem is always in the news. And it's going to be. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's going to be a cup of trembling unto all people round about, when they shall be in siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day, now we've come to the day of the Lord now, we can see all through history that Jerusalem has been, especially since World War II, we can see it uh, very strongly. But in that day, in the day of the Lord, I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. The Lord says, I'm not going to stand for this forever. For all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. We just read where the Lord is going to gather them together. The Lord's going to gather them there, close to Jerusalem. He's going to make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. In that day, saith the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I'll open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in the Lord of hosts, their God. In that day, I will make the governors of Judah like a hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour all people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. You know, when I read this and realize that this is the antitype of the fiery furnace, and I read this as it's a hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, this brings me back to the book of Daniel and the fiery furnace, because it is a type of what's just going to happen. We saw how the Lord miraculously saved Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Even the people that threw them in the fire died, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were not hurt by the fire. And they came out and testified to King Nebuchadnezzar, who had them thrown in there. Let's see how the Lord's going to take care of the people here in the day of the Lord. The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. And that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. It's going to be a very different time. And the house of David shall be as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all nations that come against Jerusalem. You notice this? The Lord is going to destroy all nations that come against Jerusalem. Why is he going to do that? Because the Lord said, I am going to bring a remnant back. And the first chapter of Isaiah says, if the Lord hadn't left us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the word of the Lord, and it's going to come to pass no matter what anybody does. And when somebody tries, the Lord's going to destroy them. He's going to destroy all nations that come against Jerusalem. It can't be more plain than that. Verse 10, and I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. How is he going to do that? How is he going to pour out his grace upon the nation of Israel? The way he's going to do it is they're going to look upon him. He's coming back. And the nation of Israel is going to see him. Every eye is going to see him. And they'll look upon me whom they have pierced. They will realize that the Messiah that had been promised ever since Genesis 3:15, if not before, came, and they yelled, "Crucify him." They'll realize that. And they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, and mourning in Hadram in the valley of Megiddon. And the land shall mourn, every family apart, and every house of David apart, and the wives apart, and the family of the house of Nathan apart, and their wives apart. The family of the house of Levi apart, and their wives apart, and the family of Shammai apart, and their wives apart. And all the families that remain, every family apart, and their wives apart. Why are they all going to mourn individually? The kids, the husband, the wife. Why are everybody going to mourn? Because they looked upon him that they had pierced. They're going to realize Jesus is the Messiah. Verse 6 in chapter 13 of Zechariah. Let's skip down a little bit. It's the same context. And one shall say unto him, what are these wounds in thine hands? They had just taken a look at him when he come down. And he says, what are those wounds in his hand? Now what's he going to say? Those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, and against the man that is my fellow, saith the Lord of hosts. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, and I will turn mine hand upon the little ones. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third, the remnant, shall be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and I'll refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. That's going to happen in the kingdom, a great revival. So we saw that the Lord said, I'm not going to begin the process of Israel becoming a nation in one day and then stop in the middle. I'm going to cause to bring forth. He is going to cause the baby to be born, metaphorically. Israel is going to be born, no matter how anybody tries to get in his way. The Lord's going to bring Israel back. But it's not just Israel. There's going to be a great company of Gentiles as well. And we'll see that next time in greater detail. But how is the Lord going to cause to bring forth? Because They're going to say, they're going to look upon him whom they have pierced, and they're going to mourn. They're going to repent. They're going to change. And when they do, you notice what the Lord's going to do? He's going to refine them through the fire. You know, these are the people that we can read about. These are the people that we see in the book of Joel. Let me just go there and we'll quit here. But I'd like to go to the, I guess I put the Bible away, huh? It's not even on here. Oh, there we go. We go to Joel chapter 2. Now remember, Joel gave the definition of the day of the Lord. He says it's going to be a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. It's a 7-year period, all right? And the Hebrew day starts in the evening. And it's going to be dark, but it's going to get gloomier, and it's going to get darker, and it's going to get gloomier. But then we see the glory of God. This begins to spread over the mountains. And his people are going to look upon him whom they have pierced and going to say, what are those marks in your hands? He says, I received that in the house of my friends. And there's going to be great mourning. The Lord is going to bring them back. This is what's on the Lord's mind. You notice what we have here? A great people and a strong. There hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as a garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap. Like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people shall be much pained. All faces shall gather blackness. They shall run like mighty men. Now, these are the people that have been persecuted and put down. They've been judged by God because they had rejected their own Messiah, just as Judah and his brethren had done to their little brother. But the Lord's going to bring them back. And he's going to bring them back because they're going to look upon him, just as the brethren looked upon Joseph. They realized who Joseph was. They're going to look on Jesus Christ and realize who he is. And the Lord's going to bring them through a fire and refine them, and they're going to run like mighty men, and they shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march every one on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks, neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. These are going to be strong people. And they shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall, and they shall climb up upon the houses, and they shall enter the windows as a thief. The earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And the Lord will utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? You see what's on the Lord's mind, even when he's defining the day of the Lord, is a great people. That's what's been on the Lord's heart ever since he called Abraham to serve God and made of Abraham a people. And we might remember back when we were going through the book of Exodus, that early on, the Lord called these slaves in Egypt his army. Well, the Lord was not only looking at the people as they were as slaves, but he looks on down through the generations, and he sees a strong people, a great people. He's going to see a people that has never been anything like it, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. That's what's in the Lord's heart. He's going to bring his remnant back. But just as the mystery goes, remember what a New Testament mystery is something that's in the Old Testament and people didn't really see it. We saw in Isaiah 49 where the Lord said it's going to be a light thing that I have caused you to bring Israel back. But I'm going to make you a light to the Gentiles. When these people that the Lord is talking about here comes back to God, there is going to be a group of Gentiles that can't even number. That's the heart of God. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Those that believe on him should not perish, but have everlasting life. This is the way the Lord's going to do it. He's going to cause to bring forth, and it's going to be a mighty army that the Lord has, and it's going to happen in the day of the Lord.